Welcome. Today, we will explore the story of Big Fish, a movie that teaches us about love, family, and the power of imagination. Let's dive into this unforgettable journey. Big Fish is a magical and emotional film. It was directed by Tim Burton, who is famous for his unique and creative style. The film is based on a novel by Daniel Wallace. The screenplay was written by John August. The music was composed by Danny Elfman, and it adds a magical feeling to the film. The cinematography by Philippe Rousselot is beautiful and helps create the film's dreamlike world. The film stars Ewan McGregor as young Edward Bloom and Albert Finney as old Edward Bloom. Billy Crudup plays Will Bloom, Edward's son, and Jessica Lange plays Sandra Bloom, Edward's wife. The actors give unforgettable performances. Ewan McGregor shows Edward's adventurous spirit, and Albert Finney shows his warmth and humor. The film was shot in Alabama and other locations in the United States. The production team worked hard to create the magical world of Edward's stories. Now, let's dive into the story of Big Fish. The film begins with Will Bloom. He is a journalist and lives in another city. He does not see his father often because he is tired of his father's stories. One day, Will learns that his father is very sick. He decides to visit him with his wife, Josephine. Will wants to understand his father before it is too late. When Will arrives, his father, Edward, is in bed but still telling his magical stories. Edward's stories are like fairy tales. He talks about giants, witches, and magical towns. Will remembers these stories from his childhood, but now as an adult he thinks they are just lies. He wants to know the real Edward Bloom. Edward's first story is about a giant. When Edward was a young boy, he lived in a small town called Ashton. One day, the people of the town were scared because a giant was eating their animals and destroying their homes. Edward was not afraid. He decided to talk to the giant. He said, "You are not a monster. You are just lonely. Come with me, and we will find a better place." The giant agreed, and they left the town together. In another story, Edward talks about a witch. The witch had a magical glass eye. If someone looked into the eye, they could see how they would die. Edward was curious, so he looked into the eye. He saw his death, but he was not afraid. He said, "Knowing how I will die makes me feel free. I can live my life without fear." Edward's stories continue. He talks about a magical town called Spectre. The town was perfect, but Edward did not stay there. He said, "I am not ready for this place yet. I have more to see in the world." He also talks about joining the circus. He worked for a circus owner named Amos Calloway. Amos was a werewolf, but only Edward knew his secret. Edward fell in love with a beautiful woman named Sandra at the circus. He said, "When I saw her, time stopped. She was the most beautiful woman in the world." Edward's love for Sandra is one of the most beautiful parts of his story. When Edward first saw Sandra at the circus, he knew she was the one. But Sandra was engaged to another man, Don Price. Edward did not give up. He worked at the circus for 3 years just to learn one thing about Sandra each month. He learned that she loved daffodils. One day, Edward decided to win her heart. He went to her house and covered her yard with thousands of daffodils. Sandra was amazed, but Don Price was angry. He beat Edward badly, but Edward did not fight back. He just smiled and said, "I love her, and I will marry her." Sandra was touched by Edward's courage and love. She broke off her engagement with Don and married Edward. They had a son, Will, and lived a happy life together. Will listens to these stories, but he is still angry. He says, "Dad, why can't you just tell me the truth? I want to know who you really are." Edward replies, "I have told you the truth. Maybe not the facts, but the truth." Will does not understand. He thinks his father is hiding something. As Edward gets sicker, Will tries to find the truth. He talks to people from his father's past. He learns that some parts of the stories are true, but Edward made them more magical. For example, there was no real giant, but there was a very tall man. The town of Spectre was real, but it was not magical. Will starts to understand that his father's stories are not lies. They are his way of seeing the world. Edward's life was full of adventure because he believed in magic. In the end, Edward's health gets worse. Will sits by his bed and tells him a story. In the story, Edward is a hero. He escapes from the hospital and Will carries him to the river. All the people from Edward's stories are there. They are happy to see him. Edward turns into a big fish and swims away. Will says, "This is how you go. This is how it ends." Edward smiles and says, "That's how I always imagined it." Edward dies, but his stories live on. At his funeral, many people come. Some of them are real, and some are from his stories. Will realizes that his father's stories were a gift. They were not just about Edward's life. They were about love, courage, and imagination. Will starts to tell these stories to his own son. He understands that the stories are the best part of his father. Now let's talk more about the film's themes and impact. Big Fish is a film about the power of stories. It shows us that life is not just about facts. It is about how we see the world. Edward Bloom's stories were magical because he believed in magic. The film teaches us to see the beauty in life and to share our stories with the people we love. The film's themes include love, family, imagination, and the power of storytelling. It explores the idea that life is not just about facts. It is about how we see and remember it. The film also touches on themes of forgiveness and understanding. It reminds us that everyone has a story to tell. Those stories are what make us who we are. Big Fish was a success. It earned over $122 million at the box office. It received positive reviews from critics. The film was nominated for several awards. It was nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Motion Picture, Musical or Comedy. Critics praised the film for its creativity and emotional depth. Audiences loved the film for its heartwarming story and unforgettable characters. The film's music is also very important. Danny Elfman composed the soundtrack. It includes songs like Man of the Hour by Pearl Jam. The music adds to the film's magical atmosphere. It helps tell the story and makes the film more emotional. Big Fish has left a lasting impact on cinema. It is considered one of Tim Burton's best films. It is a modern classic. The film's message about the power of stories and the beauty of life continues to inspire audiences around the world. It reminds us to cherish our loved ones and to see the magic in everyday life. If you enjoyed this journey through the story of Big Fish, please give this video a thumbs up. Leave a comment and subscribe to our channel for more stories. Your support helps us bring more inspiring stories to life. Thank you for watching. Remember, life is not about what you have. It is about the moments you live and the stories you tell. Until next time.